What up, YouTube Live? How's it going, everybody? Welcome, welcome. Tonight is Friday night, June 21st, 2019. And I just watched the latest episode of Cinemax new series, Jet. Created, written, directed, produced, and showrun by Sebastian Gutierrez, the filmmaker who gave us Electra Lux and Elizabeth Harvest and Woman in Trouble. And of course, his muse is his real life partner, Carla Gugino, the beautiful Carla Gugino, who lead stars in this movie as the title character. Yeah. Now, I did my review of the pilot episode last week, so you can check it out there. But just a really quick nutshell before we get to tonight's episode 2. Jet is essentially about this woman played by Carla Gugino. She is a world-class professional thief. Her full name is Daisy Jett Kowalski. Jet is her nickname, and she just got out of prison. And last week we saw her being recruited again. Not recruited, I guess you could say, sent by this mob or criminal boss played by Giancarlo Esposito, the guy who played Gus in Breaking Bad series. Remember him? So Giancarlo Esposito kind of sends Jet to, I believe it's Cuba, and she and this fella named Quinn, who's played by the actor who played Bushmaster in Luke Cage season 2. Well, anyway, she and Quinn, their assignment is that they break into the safe of this one Russian or Eastern European dude, and kind of they were assigned to, their task was to swap the ring that was inside the safe. They were not supposed to look at anything else besides the ring, or nothing more than just the ring. But Quinn saw evidence of blackmail regarding Charles Jr. And last week's episode ended with Quinn getting shot through the head by the Eastern European dude, and Carla Gugino got threatened by that Eastern European dude into working for him. So I guess you could say Carla kind of, sort of, well, I'll use her character's name, Jet. Jet is kind of, sort of working for Giancarlo Esposito's character. We'll call him Charles. But on the flip side, she also has to work for this Eastern European dude. I keep calling Eastern European dude. I'm trying to get that name. I think the name is Milan Bestic. So tonight's episode, we find out what that job is. But let me start by, I'm gonna save that for last, okay? Because it's a heist thing. I have a lot of thoughts about it. I'm a big fan of Heist. But I want to start by commenting on the actress who plays Jet's partner. She's not married to her. I guess that's what the episode seems to point out, that they're not married couple. I guess Jet might be pansexual or bi because she had sex with Quinn last week's episode. But I don't know if you can call the arrangement that she has with Elena Anaya's character Maria, if it's a lesbian relationship or whatnot. We don't know. But we get to see a little bit of that background in this episode. We get to see the backstory of how Jet and Maria met about 7 or 9 years ago. And so the actress who plays Maria is Elena Anaya. If you don't know who that is, she is this pretty famous Spanish actress. She's famous in Spain. and she is freakishly hot, dude. She is so sexy. There's this movie that I saw starring her back in 2011, I believe, co-starring Antonio Banderas. It's called The Skin I Live In. It's by, I think it's by Pedro Almodovar. But anyway, you got to check it out. If you haven't seen The Skin I Live In, it's a must see. And Elena Anaya, it's full of, it's the movie's full of twists and turns. But one thing is for sure, Elena Anaya just looks amazingly sexy in that film. And so, in the beginning of this episode and last week's episode, Elena Anaya's character in this show, Maria, is frail and she's kind of sick, and apparently she has terminal illness. So she doesn't look quote unquote hot. Okay, not to belittle her, but um, there's a shot of Jet sitting next to Maria. You know, they're like, I guess, consoling each other without talking at all or speak without speaking at all. And Maria just looks like, look. She looks. I'm sorry to say this, but she looks terrible compared to Jet. You know, Carla looks amazing. And I see that in the beginning of that in the beginning of tonight's episode. I'm like, that's not the Elena Anaya I knew of or I knew about. And then bam, halfway through the episode tonight, we see the backstory of how they met, and immediately, man, it without even like it just goes straight to showing or reminding you how hot Elena Anaya actually is. And so in this backstory, Maria swims in this. Well, she stays in this hotel motel room, apparently next door to Jet, and they haven't met yet at this time. But the first shot was just like Maria swimming in the swimming pool, hotel swimming pool, butt naked, full on naked, man. Holy crap. In all her glory, and she's so proud of it too. And and she rises out of the water looking so gorgeous, and she has this little bit confrontation, a funny confrontation against not against, but with the hotel owner. You know, so you can't swim naked here. And it's like, and I'm like, if she wants to, yeah. Don't be a party kill, don't be a buzzkill. Like, who died and made you a buzzkill? Um, but yeah, it's just, oh my god, she's awesome. She's awesome. And that's how they met. Apparently, I guess I'm assuming Maria finds out about the condition or her medical condition right there and then in that hotel room, and at the same time, Jet also finds out her own bad news. I don't know what, but prior to that, she also did pregnancy test. So so they have the conversation, and Maria tells this story about her dad or whatnot. I, by that point, you know, I'm like, okay, fine. You know, of course, writer director Sebastian Gutierrez needs to, you know, provide some sort of a history for Maria, and I get it. You know, um, but it's not like it's so important that we're gonna revisit that story again, or it's not like that story will have any impact or effect on what's gonna happen moving forward. But that's fine, totally fine. It's like it's just Sebastian Gutierrez was like, okay, let's have an episode where we show you how these two ladies meet, and it's good. It's good just to see Elena and I back in that hot action again. Um, all right, so I also want to comment on Giancarlo Esposito in this episode. Right, Jet comes home and she gives the ring to Giancarlo's character Charles, and Charles takes Jet out to dinner. And there's this situation where uh, the new manager of the restaurant keeps interrupting them. Not that frequently, but to the point where Giancarlo's character Charles notices it. And I think because he asks the new managers like, "Oh, are you new here? Like, what happened to the old manager?" you can assume that Charles had an arrangement with the old manager that, hey, if I dine with a woman or with any of my guests in this restaurant, you are not to bother me, not 1 second at all. Not even to like, not even to ask me like, oh, how's the food? Is your service great? Or anything more I can do? No, 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 not even that. So the fact that this new manager just asked that, like, hey, how you doing? You having a good evening? Yeah, are you having a lovely time? It's very very innocent, right? That's what managers do sometimes. Even our waiters would ask that in the middle of our conversation, would interrupt. um but even that is just, it rubs Charles the wrong way. It's just like, oh, because he's trying to seduce Jed, and then they're playing in this, in their conversation they're playing this scenario thing, or like, okay, if I do this, what would you do? Something really um, sort of seductive, kind of playful kind of way. And the manager just chimes in, like, and then just it just rubs Charles the wrong way, and they're like, oh, like, you know your place. I'm the big bad boss, crime boss here, man. Your old manager wouldn't do this. And at one point, he gets a phone call, and the manager's like, "You, this is a cell phone free restaurant." That's just like the stupidest thing ever. Like, really? I did not even know such a rule exists in a restaurant. But I get why writer director Sebastian Gutierrez wants to have that set up. Like, oh, this is a cell phone free restaurant, because you can tell what's coming next, right? It's a setup for just like any other gangster mobster movie or TV show, where the crime boss or the mob boss would get irritated by somebody who basically is there at the wrong time or the wrong place. Either that, or they're just doing their job, but they get whacked or beat up anyway, because they inadvertently they push the crime mob's a button. And that's what happens tonight. So Charles, Giancarlo's character Charles, um, the moment where the manager is even tries he I mean he even tries to like apologize, I guess, after the bodyguard kind of tries to, it's like, have a talk with him, and then Charles just loses it and he just punches the guy, dude. Papa. You knew that was coming. You totally knew that was coming, but um it was necessary for that to happen, not just for shock value, but to remind the audiences, yes, Jet's boss in Cuba, the Eastern European guy, Milan Bestic, he's vicious. He's vicious, right? He is he is deeply dangerous. But at the same time, the boss that she answers to here in the states, because she's now kind of like serving as a double agent, if you will. Charles is equally dangerous, equally lethal. He's equally psychotic. So, um, caught between a rock and a hard place doesn't even begin to describe Jet's situation. Um, I gotta be honest with you, dude. The part where before I get to that, I just want to also comment real quick. I don't know which one is more, what's the word I'm looking for here? Because Giancarlo Esposito, he played Gus. Remember Gus in Breaking Bad? Gus was also a villain, and he died in a very epic way, because the explosion in the retirement home, and then he walked out. He fixes his tie, and turns out half of his body already decimated. That was such a cool death scene, by the way. And Gus, if you recall, my fellow Breaking Bad fans, Gus was also ruthless and sinister and merciless, And this guy that he plays now, Charles, he's like that too. But so my question to you is, or maybe it's too early to tell or too early to judge which one of them is more villainous, is more is the more bad guy, if you will, Gus or Charles. But I think we only had 2 episodes with Charles, so we'll see how far, if we get to see Charles literally chop somebody off limb by limb, then I guess he tops Gus, because I don't remember Gus. I don't remember Gus ever doing that at all. So we'll see how bad Charles can get, and then we could make that comparison later on. Okay, so the part where in tonight's episode that Sebastian Gutierrez, the writer director, tries to insert Jet as a mother to her daughter, and they have this conversation by the bed, you know, with a pile of money on it. But on the next scene involving the daughter is Jet having a conversation with her daughter's teacher about, I guess, some of her daughter's drawings. Um, what I'm trying to say is, it seems I totally understand that writer director Sebastian Gutierrez needs to, from time to time, he needs to insert that aspect or part of Jet's life to remind us, the audience, that hey, she's also juggling being a mom, not just being a professional thief for two dangerous bosses. Um, but I feel like the way they're like, okay, so you have all this thing, right, with the heist that we're going to talk a bit later, the heist and the whole uh, uh, coming home from Cuba and trying to wrap her head around what happened to Quinn, and then you have these couple of scenes just to like, okay, just so we can make sure that the audience remember that she's a mom. Let's put in these 2 scenes. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, is that gonna be how it is throughout the season? Like, that the parts or the moments or the scenes about her being maternal or being a mother, is that gonna be just like fillers? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, let's do 2 or 3 of these, and then the rest will be back to being about the crime. I think, if anything, I mean, it's okay. I get it why Sebastian Gutierrez needs to do that. But I think the more effective way, if for the daughter and the Maria to be involved with Jet's story overall, is if the threat against their lives happens. If either of the bosses, either Charles or Milan Bestic, threaten Jet, it's like, hey, if you don't do what I do and what I tell you to do, we're gonna kill Maria. We're gonna kill your daughter. They've done that. I think Milan has said that to her. Um, so the whole thing with, like, oh, PTA meeting, my daughter's teacher. I'm going to talk to my daughter, make sure she's a good student. I just feel like at this point, it's a distraction. And anytime that happens, the few times that it happens, I'm like, take me back to the crime story. Take me back to the heist. Take me back to this thing is just like, why you gotta take a detour to these, like, unless, as I said, unless they can incorporate that part with the crime part. Um, one of which way is to threaten Jet. It's like, hey, if you don't do what I tell you, or maybe the boss would kidnap the daughter and Maria, then that would be like, okay, Maria and the daughter being part of Jet's overall story. So yeah, but that's just my 2 cents about that. All right, so lastly, the heist. I love it. I love it. I'm a big fan of heist in general, and The way the heist is done in tonight's episode is so it's like Steven Soderbergh. You know, Steven Soderbergh is the guy who gave us all those Ocean's 11 movies. Um, at one point, they even like show split screen, and of course, there's the planning stage with the whole crew, and one of them happens to have history with Jet. We've seen him in previous episode. He's a bit of a loose cannon, and he only thinks of himself. He only looks out for number one. Um, I think his name is Neil, I believe. So anyway, you get to see the side of Jet in this heist part of the episode where she's the mastermind. She plans the whole thing. And like, and at one, I mean, she even hires this one blonde girl to pretend like she's being shot, so then the club owner would be scared to death enough to scared enough to allow Jet and her crew uh, to do what they come there to do. So anyway, I love that part. I love that part. Just like any heist movie or heist show, it's such an adrenaline thing. Like, oh my god, what if because there's always a percentage of your plan doesn't go as you may expect it to, or think it to. Like, there's always a variable. It's episode that variable that unexpected variable happens to be Neil, um, and man, woo, that twist at the end where he shoots the club owner and he shoots at Jet. Oh man, that is some good shit right there. And now is that's a great way to end the episode, because now you're like, if you've been following these two episodes or these two nights, you'll be like, oh my god, did he actually shoot her in the head? Did he get her at all? Or did she get to run away in the last minute before the bullet flies at her? It's like, oh, now I want to see next Friday. Now I want to see next Friday now. So it was nicely done. The whole heist was nicely done. I, I think it even has Ocean's Eleven's knack for, or the inclusion of jazz lounge kind of music in it, with a bunch of bass. But it really that part really ignites the excitement of all of us fans of heist movies and heist TV shows. So kudos to Sebastian Gutierrez. And with that, things are now getting more interesting, right? If you thought that the first episode was kind of slow, with Quinn and Jet, their little heist, only just the two of them, and it didn't go really well in the end. I was like, oh, well, tonight's episode is nothing like that. Tonight's episode is actually exciting. It's just like makes you, oh yes, a teamwork, Mission Impossible. I love it, love it, love it. Of course, um, that one unexpected variable. So we're gonna see next Friday. This is such a great show. I love it, and I'm glad that it only has 8 episodes. Instead of like freaking 13 or 10. It seems that Sebastian Gutierrez really invests something solid here with each episode. You don't feel like you're wasting your time. Um, Even the backstory for Maria, like I said, there's something to behold there because Maria's gorgeous. I love it. So I can't wait for next week's episode. This is I know it's on Cinemax. It's not the channel that a lot of people usually turn to. Um, I know some of you have told me like, "Hey, I'm a big fan of Warrior," the martial art drama on Cinemax this past season. But man, Rama, if only it wasn't on Cinemax. Why can't it be on HBO or Showtime or any of the other regular networks? It seems that Cinemax is even though it's part of HBO, it's just like it's not the channel that a lot of people usually turn to, or tune into, let alone buzz about. You know how Game of Thrones was like such a big deal. Every new episode, every Sunday, everybody talks about it. Not a lot of people, not a lot of people do that about Cinemax new shows on Friday nights. Um, Not even for Strike Back. So, but my point is that I hope people get to somehow find Jet, um, and even though they're not maybe fans of Cinemax, um, that they would that they would stumble upon this show and end up liking it enough to stick around or to keep watching through to the end, for the entire 8 episodes. I hope so. I hope so. Even if they're not fans of Cinemax, even if you're not fans of Cinemax, please go check out Jet. Such a fun crime, um, neo noir slash heist drama, and I think you will be immensely entertained by Jet. In addition to the fact that Carla Gugino is one of the most beautiful women on the planet, and of course her co-star Elena Anaya is just drop dead gorgeous, sexy, sexy as hell. So of course that's a superficial reason on my part, but yeah, go check out Jet. Thanks so much for tuning in to this long rant of mine, my review of Cinemax series Jet season 1 episode 2, titled Charles Jr. Oh, I forgot to comment on Charles Jr. Charles Jr. Real quick, it's funny that the episode is titled Charles Jr., but Charles Jr. only shows up in this episode like a few minutes. Apparently, he blows up this one judge that is in the pocket of his dad, but the one that they're blaming the judge's death on is this Mexican cartel that apparently Charles Jr.'s dad is now going to go into war with. Um, but you can tell Charles Jr. is one of those little brat who grows up spoiled, right? He's that kind of guy. And now I think he's making a move on his dad's power because you know he got rid of the judge and he blamed or he pinned it on the cartel that is now gonna have a war with his dad. So it's a very, very textbook way of coup, if you will. Because once the dust settles, if his dad gets wounded or killed by the cartel or they kill each other, guess who's gonna step into power? Him, Charles Jr. So it's a very textbook way, and I'm surprised that none of the other characters are kind of picking that up yet. Um, the cops seem to be interested in Charles Jr. They seem to have something on him, Charles Jr., that we, the audience, are not privy to yet. Not even Jet, because even Jet is thinking like, oh, the cartel did it. They blew up the judge. So yeah, interesting how the episode is titled Charles Jr. and yet Charles Jr. only shows up just for a few minutes in this episode. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see whether or not Daddy finds out and gives his son a punishment. I doubt it though. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, for watching to this live review of Jet season 1 episode 2, titled Charles Jr. Of course, the series stars Carla Gugino, and it airs every Friday night only on Cinemax. If you've seen the show or if you've seen the episode tonight, do you agree or disagree with my assessment? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And as always, subscribe to my channel, press that like button, ring that bell. And if you can help support this channel, please do so at patreon.com/Rama Screen. Let's rock this. Woo woo.